Hey everybody, it's Josh. I was just watching a debate the other night with Sam Harris, who is a big atheist. Thinks he's some kind of hardcore intellectual, which I guess he is, but he has very little common sense. But he was talking about how there's nothing more natural, I guess, for the human condition than tribal violence. And he was saying this is why religion is dangerous. You know, obviously he was pointing to Islam when, they're flying planes into buildings, and Christianity, of course, they have to go back a pretty long time for the violence. They justified slavery in the United States. They justified the Crusades, which the Crusades were, I think, a little bit more complex story, because that was literally after a long period of time where Muslims were violently just slaughtering Christians. And they finally stood up and defended themselves. Now, did they take it too far? Sure. It's that natural tendency to be violent, to seek vengeance. I was watching, it's a great show, Wyatt Earp and the Cowboy Wars on Netflix. And I found myself cheering on vengeance, because the Cowboys were going and picking off, Wyatt Earp's people. They finally killed his brother, and then he just lost it and just went on a vengeance campaign, the vengeance trail, or whatever they called it. And as a human being, we want to see that kind of justice. We want to see that kind of retribution, because we have hearts that are sinful. He killed a couple people during that vengeance trail in cold blood. He could have taken them in, had them stand trial. Of course, it was the Wild West still. It wasn't even part of the United States over in Arizona and Tombstone. So he knew, after a couple sham trials already, that justice was probably not going to be served. But the thing is, I want that retribution. I am always trying to counsel my daughter, who gets bullied, to not seek that retribution. But she wants it so badly. She wants to get back at the one specific person, but multiple people, any bullies. You want to get them back. And I told her, listen, that is not the way that Christ teaches us. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Of course we want to get back at the people who have wronged us. Of course we do. We want to see them pay for the harm they've caused us or the ones that we care about. But that's why Christianity is not only so revolutionary, but so hard. Because we have to deny ourselves, which means deny that feeling of retribution. But going back to, Sam Harris's point, that the tribal violence that we have in our nature is exacerbated by religion, which is just ridiculous. Because I don't care what you say. Okay, a religion like Islam is a lot different. But when we're speaking of Christianity, there is no retribution. Christ tells us over and over again, do not seek revenge or retribution. So, which is more dangerous? having no religion at all, or having Christianity, which, yes, we've seen it can be twisted. You can twist any verse that you want to make it any way you feel like. That's what I always say. We create God in our image instead of the other way around. We're always trying to be gods of our own lives. So, which is better? To have a moral framework? To have a beckoning God who suffered for us, who died for us, who teaches us to forgive, not to seek that retribution, not to seek that revenge, or to have nothing at all where people are just gods of their own lives? Because that's the way Sam Harris and other atheists would have it. They said, we don't need no God to be moral. Right. And yet, still, you seem to take the morals, all the morality from Christianity and other, Judaism and all kinds of other, Buddhism. You take from that and you make it your own, saying, I would have come up with these things without that. Well, why don't we go look at human history? Why don't we look at human history before Abraham, or even at the time of Abraham, and even, before Judaism started to spread, and then, of course, Christianity changed everything. How were people doing with their own morality? First of all, we can't deny that there is an innate primal desire to seek God. So you had people making gods in their own image, like I said, but then they would transfer that self-god into a certain community religion, and sometimes that religion spread, like the worship of Baal. They sacrificed humans. They sacrificed little babies to the altar of Baal, thinking this was going to gain them favor with this false god. You have non-stop lessons. In fact, I would even go as far as to say it was one of the main lessons of the Old Testament, that God would never, Yahweh would never, Jehovah would never ask for a human sacrifice. And then people say, well, what about Abraham? God told Abraham to go kill my son. Abe said, man, you must be putting me on. Sorry. I literally, every time I think of that, I think of the Highway 61 song by Bob Dylan. So God told Abraham to go sacrifice his son Isaac. Look at Abraham's history. Abraham grew up with those false idols. So did his wife Sarah. They were worshipers of those false idols. It stands to reason that many close to them also engaged in human sacrifice, because it was going on everywhere. Just evil sacrifices, evil stuff all around. Temple prostitution, the immorality does not end with these false gods. So he tells Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. He makes him go on a 3-day walk to the top of the mountain to make his sacrificial area, his sacrificial temple. And the whole time Abraham is walking up this mountain, he is just in anguish. He's saying, please God, praying, please God, take me instead. Don't take my boy. Don't take him, please. Which almost any good parent would do. I know I would give my life in a heartbeat for my children. I would give my life in a heartbeat pretty much for anyone. I'd have to think twice about a bad person, and that is sad, because that's not what Christ tells us to do. But it's just reality, because I'm a flawed human being. So Abraham is walking for these 3 days just in existential terror that his God, who he thought so great and so peaceful, is now going to make him sacrifice the son, a son that he waited so long for. Because remember, Abraham was already an old man by now. He was, I think it was in his 90s, but I'm not sure about that. You have to double check that. Fact check me. He gets up to the altar, and he has to put Isaac on the altar. Isaac, of course, on the way, he's like, "Hey, where's the lamb, Dad?" I mean, I laugh now, but think about you going through this. Think about how awful this would be. I mean, just sheer horror going through your heart. He has to put Isaac on the altar, which who knows how that went. Isaac, being the faithful servant he was, he probably willingly got on there, but it's possible Abraham had to trick him on there. I'm not sure. It doesn't say. He gets him on there. He's crying, lifts up that knife, and God stops him. Why? Because God needed to show him. God needed to show him the sting. The whole Old Testament, you see all these horrible things and you're like, what is this? I can't worship a God who does all these things, but God is not doing all these things. The Old Testament is God showing his people the sting of their sins. He's letting their children learn, his children learn their own lessons. If you have a child and you keep telling them not to touch a hot stove, which isn't the greatest example, but we'll use it, the child's going to be like, all right, well, you're not giving me any reason why I shouldn't touch that hot stove. You just keep saying, no, don't do it. I'm going to touch that damn stove. And their fingers are going to be burned. And guess what? Through that pain, they're going to learn a valuable lesson. And maybe the next time you tell them not to do something, maybe they're going to think about it a little bit longer. The same goes for slavery in the Old Testament. Slavery was rampant. Now, slavery was different at different times. By the time it was the New Testament, it was more of indentured servitude, where you were basically paying off a debt. And once your debt was paid off, you're no longer a slave. It was not like slavery was in America, or the racial slavery. But people say God condones slaves. God condones slavery. What an awful God. People like Sam Harris and all these intellectual atheists who can't read context, who can't think deeply about the meaning. God does not condone slavery. God made one of his favorite children, Moses, be a slave. He made his chosen people, the Israelites, be slaves for hundreds of years. And then he made a big, huge showing on freeing them. But what happened when he does free them? And then they have to travel through the desert for years, for decades. What happens then? Many say, I was better off as a slave. Hell with this freedom. I was better off as a slave. But no, you know what? The sting of the whole thing, the sting of slavery, the sting of freedom without meaning, freedom when you've experienced at least some sort of comfort in the past, the hardships that's not on you because you have people feeding you, as a slave at least. These are the things that God let his people learn firsthand. These are the things that you have to understand are part of nature, part of human nature. We have to learn from our own mistakes firsthand. If we don't learn from these mistakes, then we are bound to repeat history of just screwing up over and over again then. I know so many times for me, I had to do things the hard way. I had to learn the absolute hardest way possible because my thick skull wasn't letting anything through there until I knew for sure. I thought, I'm better. I know better than my parents. I know better than God. I'll just do it myself. And what happened? I learned a hard lesson that stuck more than if I was just told, no, don't do that. Trust me, bro. Trust me, son. I learned the hard way. I guarantee you that you all have learned things the hard way, have done the exact same thing. So when Sam Harris says it's better to not have things like Christianity, BS. That is total crap. Or as Pastor Cliff says, baloney. Baloney sausage. He doesn't say baloney sausage, that's just me. I'm telling you, having that moral groundwork, having that figure who has changed the world more than any other, more than anyone. Name someone who has changed the world more than Christ. There is nobody who even comes close. Somebody tried to tell me the other day Buddha did. No. Buddhists, they respect Christ's teachings. Buddhists don't know what to do when real trouble comes. Because Buddhism is an escape. Eastern religion is an escape. They don't have a relationship with a God made man. They just have escape. Sure, it's healthier than doing drugs or alcohol. It's healthier than gambling or video games, I guess. Not much more than video games, I guess. But yeah, you can learn some things about yourself in Buddhism. What are you going to do, though, when you're a Buddhist and the world is completely crumbling around you? What are you going to do when you lose your job, your wife has miscarriages, one of your parents or close family members commits suicide, you go bankrupt because you're living in poverty? You have no purpose in life anymore. Just meditate your life away? I'm sure your spouse and your children or whoever are going to love that. Oh, you're doing such a great job. Just go into your meditation again. Go ahead and escape. Or are you going to have a relationship with your God? You're going to have a relationship with Christ, who can reach out, who sends the greatest gift mankind has ever received, the Holy Spirit, to help you. But Sam Harris doesn't think that's real. He thinks we have to wait until we die to get our eternal reward. And that's just a big fairy tale. No, Sam Harris. No, atheists. I don't have to wait until I die to get my eternal reward. My eternal reward was given to me right now. It's given to me with stipulations that I must keep my faith to keep that eternal reward. I must keep faith to keep the Holy Spirit will always be within me. But the Holy Spirit won't be doing much if I turn away from God again, if I turn away from Him. You have to have a relationship with the Holy Spirit for the Holy Spirit to be able to work within you, to work through you. So these atheists who keep saying, you have to wait until you return, until you're dead to your little sky daddy. Such mocking, oh man, these people. I try to not get angry at them. I try to be like Christ. And you know what? I'm doing better than I used to. I am absolutely doing better than I used to because I feel the peace within me. But these people are so either blind or they are just flat out lying. They're intentionally misleading people to keep them from this salvation because they think that atheism is the answer, because they think, oh, you shouldn't need a God to tell you what's right and what's wrong. You don't. God put those morals in you. You have those morals in you too, atheists, even though you don't want to believe it, even though your militant denial of anything that gives hope to people, anything that you cannot see with your own two eyes, except for just about everything that we have within a human relationship, like love, like anger and jealousy. I mean, these are things you can't see and can't measure. These people are the ones who are dangerous. If you don't believe me, look at basically any dictatorship, any war. These things start because we turn away from God. We might say, oh, it's a war being waged in the name of Christianity. So what? I could wage a war in the name of anything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make it true. Just because somebody says something, claims something. And just because people follow them, because you're appealing to their natural tribal violence. It is absolutely disgusting that these people don't understand how you can be saved so completely. And they are keeping people from this by mocking, by pulling out Bible verses of old Mosaic law from, civil laws of Moses from the Old Testament and saying how disgusting and evil God is. What a load of crap. I can't, these people, they try you, but these people are doing the work of evil. They might not be evil people, although a lot of them, I don't judge like that, because I can't say who's evil and who's not, unless it's blatant. But they sure as hell have the fruits of evil. They sure as hell have the fruits of the tree of knowledge, which is why they're probably all intellectuals. They would have been eating that fruit left and right. I mean, just engorging themselves in it. Well, let me say this. Atheists smuggle their morality from the religious. They create their own little private religions as their little separate denominations so they can say, look, we're not a religion, we're not a faith, we all believe something different. When they all say the exact same things over and over and over again. They all repeat each other. Their truth claim that there is no God, that rational life came from non-rational life, that we all are just going to die and just be nothing, that our lives are meaningless, that there's no reason for hope in life because this life is meaningless. They are a cult. They are a religion. They are much more dangerous than Christianity is. They might be on the same level as something like Islam, okay, but really, I don't think so, because most Muslims are peaceful. Most Muslims follow the peaceful parts of the Quran and ignore the really bad parts of the Quran, where they're instructing you to either enslave, tax, or kill non-believers. Throw the rocks at the Jews. I urge you to start thinking more critically about the Bible, about your faith. But that stuff is not even important until you have a relationship with God. That is the number one thing I always encourage, because that is the number one thing that will save you. Nothing else will. You can go meditate all day, every day to escape this world. Not going to save you. Not going to save you at all. Not going to help really a damn thing in your life except for forgetting a little bit about your problems. The only thing that will save you is that personal relationship with Christ. He will take the crushing weight off your shoulders forever. All right, everybody, I got to get off of here. I got to run into the store. I'm going to start doing more videos again outside next week because it's supposed to get cooler again, hopefully. I'm going to hopefully do a video with TJ. I know some people have asked me about the link for TJ's Cash App. He really is struggling right now. He could really use help. Check out go to his page and click the live videos and check out some of the live videos he's done. He is just amazing. I mean, he's still so new at this, and he's far surpassed me. His knowledge, he's much smarter than me. I am so glad that we have a warrior of Christ like him. You know, he's not, I understand it's not for everyone, because he's got the energy. I got the peace of the Holy Spirit. He got more of the energy. That's just our personalities. So, you know, it's different, but I still think that he is going to be far better at spreading the light than I am. I'm just out here searching for lost souls one by one. He's going to be converting masses. I pray that that's the truth. That's kind of what I've seen. And we shall see, I guess. I mean, you never know. I pray, because he has got the Holy Spirit within him. He can keep that faith. He can keep pouring his heart and soul into those videos. Man, brother, you are going to be a force. Just remember, it's always about Christ. And he understands that. He says that in every single video repeatedly. You know, he opens up about his weaknesses. He opens and pours his heart out. It is exactly what people need right now. People can relate to that. And then you read scripture and how it relates to your life. And he does that too. And it's beautiful. So, TJ Tells the Truth is his channel. His Cash App is $, TJ Tells the Truth. If you can send him anything, he really needs some money right now just to buy food, just for basic living things. And, If not, try to help someone out in any way you can. If you don't have money, that's fine. Help someone, pray with them. Do what you can. All right, everybody. I love you all. God bless.